In other developments now, South Africa and Ghana have affirmed trade relations at the Second Binational Commission in Pretoria. The two countries have signed memorandums of understanding in various sectors of the economy. Business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo joins us now for more details. Good afternoon to you, Ntokozo. How is the business community receiving government's commitments and the outcomes of this gathering?
Good afternoon, Dumisang. Indeed, the business community, both here in South Africa and from Ghana, have been engaging for most of the day on how to improve those business relationships. And as you rightfully said, memorandums of understanding signed in several industries to improve that collaboration. And I am now joined by Dr. Stavros Nicolau, who is the head of strategic trade at Pharmaceutical. Thank you so much for talking to us. So the pharma industry, once again, making a prominent feature in such discussions when it comes to the relationship between South Africa and Ghana. Talk us through that.
Look, I think firstly it's an immensely important relationship bilaterally and strategically. So let me zero in on pharma for a moment. So we know that the pharmaceutical industry in many parts of Africa is non-existent. Aspen is an exception on the continent. We have a strong footprint, a strong manufacturing network on the continent and beyond. But Africa still needs to step up its self-reliance and self-dependency. So we saw what happened during COVID. We've discussed it many times on your program where unnecessary lives and livelihoods were lost that could have been saved because Africa did simply not have its own capacity and capability. So two messages that came through today. We had a pharmaceutical roundtable, and this gets communicated up to the presidents. Minister Patel mentioned it quite strongly. The two calls to action here is to the two presidents. Firstly, let's look at areas of partnership and collaboration in the pharmaceutical sector. The second is a strong call to continue what we call the reconfiguring of global and regional procurement on the continent so that the continent starts buying drugs, medicines, vaccines for Africa from African companies. And that was a very strong call. And it's very lastly, you can only do all of these things if you have the appropriate regulatory approvals, the right quality and integrity, product integrity standards. So the other strong call that came through very clearly and explicitly today was we need to step up mutual recognition and harmonization of the regulatory standards so you don't have to go through many different unnecessary hoops to achieve registration. And by that time it's too late. Others have accessed the market. And we need to have this integrated approach that combines the regulatory on the one hand and then procurement. And procurement needs to be through a pool procurement mechanism in Africa. It's taking a bit long to achieve and we need acceleration. That was a strong call today.
And now when we're talking about some of the bottlenecks that still do exist in the market, for large organizations it's easier to move around those. It begs the question then, when we're signing new memorandums, do we look back at the memorandums that have not come to fruition and have not been implemented to see where are the gaps that need to still be filled?
You know, unfortunately, this requires careful coordination between economic policy on the one hand and on the other hand foreign policy. And the markets are fluid, they change year on year. So we can't say something we signed 5 years ago is necessarily applicable today. There are going to be changes. It gives you a framework. And that's why summits and business fora like today are very important because it gives business people like myself the opportunity to directly address issues with the heads of states and the governments so that you can get the necessary momentum and traction behind these things. You know, we have a small manufacturing facility as Aspen in Ghana, and the other businesses that are invested in South Africa. We are, in fact, the largest investor on the continent, as President Ramaphosa said, in Ghana, and that requires very careful coordination at where any regulatory and other bottlenecks appear. And these are the opportunities to address those bottlenecks. I know many South African business people invested or doing trade with Ghana have raised a number of these issues, and I think the measure of success is how quickly can we unravel and deal with those so that trade, commerce and investment is not hindered moving forward. And very lastly, these interactions are really, really important from the perspective of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Now, the free trade area is being scrutinized at the moment. We South Africa, are the 9th signatory, and we've started implementing the measures contained in the free trade area, the levers that appear there, but we have some way to go as a continent. And this is a measure of how successful we are going to be in the free trade area, debottlenecking some of these non-tariff barriers to entry, but also fully understanding for a business person like myself, a company like Aspen or any other company, what does it actually mean when you say you're going to reduce tariffs? What does it mean when you are going to reduce and improve on bottlenecks? What does that actually mean? And the free trade area is a very important lever and one that we shouldn't allow to fail.
Thank you so much for those insights, as always. And of course, that's Aspen Pharmacare, Head of Strategic Trade, talking us through that there's still a lot of work to be done, Dumisang, but some progress being made since that first binational commission. For now, it's back to you in studio.